Hey guys, what's up? This is your average esports podcast, episode 33, and with me again is Skim. And this time we'll be talking about some Dota 2, CSGO, normal stuff. Because there are big tournaments around, Epicenter for Dota, the EPL 9 finals for CSGO, but we also have a shit ton of roster changes too,
Yeah.
right? So we'll go with the one where
That's the point in time.
we go with the one where we both called it, even though we have nothing to do with Liquid. It's Liquid have finally bit the bullet and kicked Matumba Man, right?
Yeah.
And I think I'm not sure if it was on this podcast or if it was just in my head because sometimes I do that. But basically, I was like, Liquid they have to change. Like they were literally becoming the Virtus Pro of Dota 2 in a sense that everybody wants them to win, and every once in a while they'll give you a performance of like, yeah, those guys are fucking champions, and then the rest of the time they're shit.
And no, it was definitely on this podcast. We both effectively called it like a couple of months ago, I think. Even,
Yeah, like
that this time, I mean, any lineup has its expiration date, and I think in Dota especially, it's really difficult to keep a lineup going for multiple years just because of how the meta changes, how the game changes.
mm-hmm.
This is like a bold statement, but I feel like it's a little bit easier in CS because the meta shifts aren't as drastic as in Dota because
Yeah.
there's like a balance patch every 2 months effectively.
Yeah. So like basically like I'd put it this way, like in Dota, you have to simultaneously learn a new thing and then recreate like a new path that nobody's ever seen before. If you want to do what basically Kuroki tried to do with his Liquid squad. Whereas in CS:GO, like Virtus Pro were able to do it because they got new maps, right? And even though like the maps are different, the strategies, tactics, and principles are generally the same. Like the principles in Dota can drastically shift from patch to patch.
Yeah, on like even the demands on every position,
Mm-hmm.
like in CS, like an AWP, I will say that obviously there has been a huge AWP shift. Back then when the AWP was changed, you could totally see how the meta shifted from
Mm-hmm.
back when Kenny S and JW would be able to do anything with the AWP, how it drastically shifted.
And then now we have Simple, who proved you can still do it.
Right. But
yeah,
in Dota, these role changes almost happen like every day. It's just like a slow change, and then when a balance change comes in, it's like a drastic change. Like suddenly you have to play carries in mid, and like that's a huge shift from like, oh, I always played Invoker, Puck, like these playmakers or like these team fight initiators, whatever, and like suddenly I have to play Naga Siren, SF, and like all these.
Yeah,
all
one day
these hard
one day it
carries,
can be
right?
one day you can be Fada, the next day you have to be Arteezy. Like
That
kinda
honestly,
how
that's the best.
works.
That's the best way of that's the best way of putting it. Really, that really is the best way of putting it. Because that's literally what happened.
That's literally what happened. Not even joking. Right?
So
Like,
I think in Dota maintaining a roster for such a long time is almost impossible, especially at the high level.
yeah, it's also why like I think if you want like if you want to say Liquid are the greatest lineup of all time in Dota, go for it. I think it's a legit argument.
Yeah, it is, and there's no, and this is the thing. How did they get this? How did they get this lineup? Right? They didn't necessarily start there. They've been working on this lineup for a while, and then they had Bulba in between. And they did have Fata. They had Jarex.
You know what's funny is like the first lineup was really good too. The Jerax
That's true.
one.
Jarek's Fata one was also pretty damn strong.
Mm-hmm.
But then obviously they got Bulba, which was
Bobo was like really bad.
Yeah. But then they got GH, and it suddenly clicked, and they started working on it. And even then, they kept grinding to make it work, right?
Mm-hmm.
GH, I remember after they won TI, he literally went back into pubs and started spamming heroes that he wasn't able to pick, like Earth Spirit. People, if you now think of GH and like his heroes, Earth Spirit is one of them. At TI7, when they won TI, he didn't even play the hero, but afterwards he put in the work to make it
like he
work.
basically realized he was Admiral Bulldog, kind of, but like unlike. But like he was on a better team than Admiral Bulldog, so it didn't really matter as much.
And you have to commend them for it, but I think as we both lined out, it was inevitable for them to make a change. And I think, I want to say we both also predicted Matuma Man to be the person.
Like there was literally no other choice. It's so hard to kick anybody else out.
It was so hard, and as I had a Twitter interaction with Skend about it too. If you're Liquid, the only reason you would want to make a change is because you want to change your playstyle, right?
Yeah.
Everybody at this point has figured you out because ultimately Liquid has a very distinct playstyle and like how they want to approach the game and how they want to play the game. And if you really want to change it, you really had to kick Matuma Man or replace Matuma because their game plan a lot of times revolves around him. whereas they want to take objectives, and he's usually the guy that
He's the
plays these
objective
objective
hero,
type.
yeah.
Exactly. And also, his hero pool was so different from Miracle's that in 99% of the games, you were able to tell him halfway through the draft who's going to play what.
Yeah, like
And that's just
people are
something.
just used to it. Like it's not even about study. It's just like everybody instantly knows now. It's
Yeah, and that's just something long term. It's gonna break you. And I mean, look at any team that's strong right now. Secret, yeah, they're the best team in the world right now. But if they were to stay together as long as Liquid has, trust me,
I don't think they'd be as good as Liquid.
either that or they're also going to face another roster change,
Yeah.
or I don't know. So I think this was the right choice for them. It sucks for Matuma Man that this is like this close to the major and this close to TI, but it's what the system allows, and I think people are now complaining about it. But ultimately, this is something that everybody has, or a lot of people have predicted the moment the system came out. Like,
Yeah,
hey, this allows people to kick players a week before TI.
Yeah, I usually don't go this route, but there is something interesting you said about the morality outlook on this. Because if you think about the most hated kick of all time, is probably PPD kicking AUI after TI, right?
Yeah.
But if you think about what he did compared to what Liquid did, I think Liquid probably should have just kicked Matuma Man right after TI. Because I think it would have given Matuma Man a much better shot at going to TI this year.
Yeah.
Because I think they were done as a team straight up after that TI. I don't think they could have kept going anyway. But
I agree. And it's so funny. It's absolutely hilarious how people are giving shit. How people are giving PPD shit for that AUI kick, because I at the time thought that was the
most humane thing he could have done.
Exactly, it was the most humane thing he could have done, because
besides like sticking with AUI and losing, obviously winning is the ultimate virtue.
It's so funny because obviously at the end it kind of didn't work out because the lineup failed in the end, right? But that's not really on that has zero to do with that decision. For all we know, that lineup would have tanked even worse if AUI had stayed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. Like, these roster decisions are always really difficult to make, and like you said, I honestly agree with you. They should have made this roster change sooner, because PPD early on recognized the flaw in that lineup. Yeah, they won TI, but that doesn't necessarily and this is something that a lot of people don't realize. TI is just one tournament, and this is why I was very skeptical of OG post TI 2, because it was just one tournament. You can't just say, "Oh, we won this one tournament. We're suddenly the best team in the world," like throughout the year. Right?
Oh man,
that doesn't work. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, they're not even when they're back now. They're not even close to like the top. But I mean, the top is super strong right now. So
right, exactly. So again, I think this was a smart move from Liquid. Overall, it would have been smarter if it had happened before. But now I guess the question is, who are they going to pick up? I think there was a leak of like YAEP playing with them, but then I've also seen a picture of somebody else playing with them. So maybe they're actually still testing out.
Yeah, like here's how I would frame what I think Liquid would have normally done. Is if I look back at Kuroki's, because I'm gonna go ahead and assume Kuroki is either the GM or has the biggest voice in it. Right, that's just my assumption. Right. And if you look at his moves ever since he left the TI Secret All-Star lineup, it's almost always been, except for like a few exceptions, almost always been either an up-and-coming player you've never heard of, or an underrated talent on a lesser team that he actually knows is good if he played with him. So obviously in the lesser-known talents be like Jerax, right? Or Matuma Man. Guys you never heard of, Mind Control, GH. The only time he's ever picked up a superstar was obviously Miracle, who, as we know, may actually be the best Dota 2 player of all time.
Right.
And I guess Bulba is another weird exception to that rule, but I actually think he might be underrated in terms of just raw Dota 2 knowledge.
See, that's the thing. I think Bulba at the time was a pickup that I think, similar to what you've been describing, is like a pickup that people would have underestimated most of the time. And there's a reason why people go back to forming teams with Bulba, right? Yeah. Like a lot of people are asking, like, how does he still get into teams? Like, there has to be a reason, and I think it's pretty obvious at this point that the reason is that this guy is a very damn knowledgeable of Dota, that it's super valuable to have him as a team. Yeah. Sure, at this point, maybe people have realized that he's more valuable as a coach, but still, he has something to offer.
Like basically, if I had to guess, he's like one of those guys that has all the answers, but he can't use any of them because like the game is real time. Yeah. So he doesn't have time to analyze and properly figure everything out. So, like, it's unfortunate.
Anyway, back to the point that you were making, though, I 100% agree with you. I think Kuroki's sort of like pattern thus far has definitely been to sort of like mold the players into the superstars of tomorrow, right? Because I think, and funnily enough, I think the same actually applies to Puppy. Because
Now this version of
well,
Puppy,
now
not
exactly.
old Puppy didn't
I
do
know.
this shit.
I'm just saying. I think that superstar secret that broke them apart. I think that sort of like changed the mentality for at least Puppy. I wouldn't necessarily say that it
No,
changed
only
it for
kind
Kuroki.
of. Like he did take mid one. He did take mid one. He did
that's
try
true.
those SEA guys first before
That's
he
true.
went this way.
But yeah, Kuroki ever since has been molded. I mean, even before that, I actually I think I wrote an article about that anyway. Even before that, Kuroki, you know, Mouse Sports back before he joined Navi, he literally created Father's career. Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
He made him into the player that he is today, or that he was about 2 years ago anyway.
He was about to become anyway.
He literally, there's a guy you probably wouldn't know about right now, Pass. He's probably like the worst player that German Dota has ever produced on a pro level, and Kuroki made him into a top level support. And that's just like he brought that Mouse Sports to like a top 4 team level at that point, right? Like in Europe anyway. And then it just goes to show that he has that potential to do that with any player, really. So I wouldn't be surprised if he picks up somebody somewhat unknown. And this is why I was convinced that he would pick up 9, one of the former Penta players that sort of like, it's also German, former player with RMN who is currently coaching Liquid. So there's a connection there. But apparently they've been screaming with Weehaw.
Weehaw is a weird guy to me, because like the only time he's ever been good is with Eternal Envy. Right.
Well, I guess
like,
you could. I guess
the DC lineup was all right.
Yeah.
But like when I think of him as like if you're talking about the global level, which we're talking about like Liquid here, like they want to be number 1. Like the only time Weehaw was close to that level was when he was out in the Eternal Envy secret team. Right? Like that's how I see it. So I think it's kind of a weird pickup in that sense, but they got to pick somebody up soon. Like Epicenter's coming real fast.
Coming up, and the fact that they haven't announced it so soon, so already yet, makes me believe that they haven't fully decided yet.
I mean, there aren't that many good choices, to be honest. Like
it's a horrible time to make a roster change. It's awful time.
Almost everybody's locked in, basically.
At the same time, I will say though that if you are looking for like sort of like scraps, there are a lot of scraps in Europe right now, because if you're not already qualified for TI, you are 100% considering roster changes right now. Mm-hmm. Whether or not you're going through the open qualifier or through the closed qualifier, it means jack shit right now.
I mean, I guess they can knock on Alliance's door if they want. Take one of their guys, but
they could, but I doubt that Alliance would let that happen.
I mean,
I think Alliance.
It depends on how the contracts are worded and shit.
Yeah, I think Alliance, and this was the case last year anyway. Before OG picked up Ana again, they did knock on Alliance's door and wanted to pick up Mickey.
Oh, they did? Okay.
And Alliance was just like, no, not happening. So,
that's hilarious, because they basically helped Alliance. I mean, OG win the TI.
Effectively, yeah. So I've considered Mickey too as a pickup potentially for them, but I think
you think Alliance is like, no, not now. And
I don't think Alliance is gonna let that happen.
Yeah, and I don't really know. Like, I don't really know exactly how. Well, I guess we'll see. Like, no matter what happens, they're gonna have to show up with a 5th guy at Epicenter.
Yep.
No matter what happens.
Though I wouldn't put it past them to also just play with a stand-in, have our man stand in as a support crew, just playing carry for that tournament. And if they want to take more time,
don't do it.
Because they're already qualified for TI, right?
Yeah,
they're already qualified for TI, so they can't afford to do it. They can afford to wait.
Yeah, but I'd rather like, it's not like they're going through the qualifiers. I'd rather live test their 5th guy. You know,
I 100% agree. 100% agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, theoretically speaking.
Yeah, theoretically speaking, they could do that, but I just don't think. I just think if they can, they should do it now. So, all right, I think that about covers the Liquid topic. Let's go to the major, Epicenter, the last one. Basically,
this is slated to be the best one yet. I've been talking to Knoxwell about this a little bit, and he crunched the numbers, and this is like the first time this season that we actually have like the closest to actually having all the 16 best teams in the world represented.
Yeah, I think it's because Europe won the minors.
Yes, yes. Because Europe brought two teams from the minors with them, whereas previously, one would always sit out, and one was definitely always among the top 16. And yeah, I mean, do you want to go through the groups? Do you want to?
All right, let's go through the groups. So Secret, Fnatic, Pain, and RNG. I think no matter what we say, it's Secret's number one, right?
Yeah.
And
Obviously, there could be an upset, but nobody's going to predict that. Like,
yeah,
Secret 100% number
okay.
one here.
I don't know that much about this Pain lineup, so I'm not gonna say anything that much about them.
It's not bad. It's not even the worst gaming lineup we've seen, but it's still like Pain Gaming. I see them as the last place in this lineup right now in this group. There's always the odd option of Fnatic failing and choking again, which they have been on a downwards trend lately, so it's not out of the question. But at the same time, Fnatic is usually stable enough to beat a team like Pain at this stage, especially since it's best of 3.
Yeah, and then we go to Fnatic, I guess. Like, I've been thinking about this for a while, like, and I realized why I should never believe in an SCA team. They just don't have that great leader. Like,
they really don't.
yeah,
they really don't.
It doesn't matter how much fucking talent they have, right? Or they have the right patch or whatever. They just don't have that leader. If you don't have him, you don't really have a consistent shot of being great.
There's a reason why they kept importing NA captains.
Yeah.
1437. What's
Demon,
his face? Jimmy. Yeah, so I 100% agree with you, and like, I swear to God, if you listen to this podcast regularly, you might think that I hate Ice or hate Daryl. I really don't. I actually really like him, and I think
he might be the best offlaner of all time.
Of all time, but there's a reason why teams with him have failed on international stages consistently at like crucial times.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. He won like
no, DAC like I think he's very good outside of TI, but TI I've never like really felt he was like.
Yeah.
I've never seen him pull off like Anna performance. You know what I mean?
That's just no. 100%. I agree with you. And this is something where you have to look at your star player then and like, hey, why aren't you carrying me? Abed, I feel like Abed is super good, super strong, but it also feels like he has yet to have that moment where I'm like, all right,
he hasn't ascended to the next level. Like there's a difference between him and the top.
And you kind of want him to be that Sumail, right? Where he ascends to godhood at some point. But he's just below that, where it's just like, yeah, he has like performances where he's like owning and dominating whatever, but he has yet to put out like that godhood performance at a tournament where I'm like, all right, this dude can carry a game against anybody by himself.
Yeah, like the two guys on Fnatic I believe could do that are Ice and DJ.
Yeah.
Right? And like
100%.
It's weird having your offlaner being one of those guys. So,
and in general, you would think that should be enough having two players at that level already, but I think just generally speaking, the team is just, as you mentioned, lacking leadership. Certainly nothing in terms of individual skill leads me to believe that this team doesn't have it, but just the leadership or the lack thereof is just something that is very concerning. Because just based on skill, as we mentioned, we have two of the best players in the world on their respective positions in ISSS and DJ, right? And then with Abed, who actually should be also one of the best players in his position too. And then we have Jabs and MP, who can be very sacrificial in their positions to make space for these people. So why is this not one of the best teams in the world? And that's where we come back to,
the leadership.
Who's the actual captain? Or rather, if they have a captain, or if clearly whoever's calling the shots is not doing a great job or sufficiently great job at it.
Yeah, or like somebody hasn't figured out exactly what the identity is or should be. Like the one run they did have, I thought they had a pretty strong identity, but they haven't been able to like copy that across patches like the way Liquid did.
And I will say though that unfortunately every team with ISSS has pretty much had a very similar identity where obviously
play around the offlaner,
play around ISSS, hope that he owns the game, and then you just go from there.
Hey man, it's sick. I love it, but
I mean it's been good enough that they won DAC, that they've won like numerous, like he always wins pretty much all the regional qualifiers with it, so it's clearly it works on a level, and they placed like 6th at this event, 4th at that event, so this is still a good team, don't get me wrong, but based on the names and based on the qualities, this should be a title contender, but it's not.
Yeah, like I remember at the beginning, it's not just us, I think at the beginning of the year, like Seb basically pointed out as Fnatic as like one of the teams he thought was going to be good,
yeah,
based off of the raw potential, but like it hasn't shown yet. Like even though they've had some good results, it hasn't shown. So,
Oh.
yeah, last team RNG. I haven't watched this team because they actually haven't made it out of China, and I don't watch the qualifiers. You know anything about Afu and his friends?
So first of all, Chinese qualifiers are always a little bit weird because Chinese teams know how to play against each other.
Yeah,
really,
man.
really well.
They're all like, if any Chinese team like barely makes it out of the qualifiers, I'll tell you now, they're all praying they get another Chinese team in TI because they know how to take them out.
Pretty much. No, I've watched them every now and then. They're not bad, but they're also not exactly great. I wouldn't necessarily, like, honestly, I wouldn't necessarily put them that far ahead of eHome.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't necessarily bet on them at this event. But just in terms of raw potential, I say this even though these guys have been around for like years now at this point. So talking about like potential and talent feels like
it doesn't. I don't know. I don't know if it doesn't actually, if it actually exists. If they've been around for
feels
years.
like I'm romanticizing. Yeah, it feels like I'm romanticizing these players in a bit because, you know, Setsu, when they fly by, like, these guys have always been on like a team that was about to break into like the top tier, and they never made it because some dude that was already they always were in teams with players that were better than them, and those players got poached, and then the team dropped down basically because they couldn't find a suitable replacement. So these players always struggled to push into that top tier. I don't see them doing much at this.
Like, I look at the squad, like the two best players, like in terms of raw potential I've seen are Lanham, who's like way outside of his prime years, and Afu, who was only good for like really good for like 3 months.
6 if you want to stretch it, but I agree. Like Afu, it's been a while since we've seen performances from him that lead us to believe that he's still one of the best. So right now I wouldn't even put him like in my top 10 of like top supports in any position. So
so I think this group's pretty obvious. Secret of Fnatic.
Yeah.
Right.
Group B.
This one's actually surprised. This one might have upset potential here. So, EG, Liquid, Infamous, and Gambit.
So first of all, again, shout out to Knoxville, the best statsman there is.
Mm-hmm.
No, that wasn't even intended stab at Hans, but so Knoxville, again, he crunched the numbers, and in terms of like his Glico rating, effectively this group's like the weakest by far, and it, you know, some people are suspecting that or are suggesting that Epicenter might have, you know, made sure that Gambit has a little bit of a more favorable group.
Is Gambit part of them? I don't think so. Are they?
No, it's just the home team.
Oh, it's just the home team.
So I wouldn't necessarily. I mean, even if that's the case, I honestly think Gambit is a dark horse for me at this event. I wouldn't be surprised if they made a bit of a deeper run. Let's say like lower bracket run 3 or something.
Yeah, top 8, maybe.
Yeah, I think I definitely can see them making top 8. Like they've been improving a lot over the like last couple of months. FNG, I've always rated him highly as a captain. He hasn't necessarily had the success ever since he joined Navi back in like 2014 or whatever. He's had very mixed results. Obviously, he then went to Virtus Pro, which was like pretty good. But ever since then, again, he was like, He still has what it takes as long as he finds people that believe in him. And I mean, he's found pretty much some of the players that have yet to like ruin their careers in terms of like being toxic assholes and shit.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like this lineup might have what it takes. And if they, I mean, it's just CIS really. CIS teams, I think, are always good in for a surprise. Again, this team in particular, I mean, Alpha Ninja is super experienced, but also still pretty strong. Immersion, I think, has played incredible in this qualifier so far. He's like, it's always easy to point to 4 position in any team and be like, yeah, this is the guy to watch because 4 positions. But I think Immersion definitely does stand out though, even as a 4 position. So definitely somebody to look out for.
Yeah, like I'll put it this way. Like I think, actually I don't know if that's true or not. But basically, I think like sometimes FNG is overrated when he's good. But in general, like I'd say this. He's like he seems like he seems like he can take some talent and take it to a decent level, like a level you wouldn't like expect, like maybe top 8 at TI. Like I think he did that once, like TI 5 or something. Like he can do it every once in a while, but in general, like I've never rated him as I've rated him as a good leader, but not a great one. Like he's not able to do like what Kuroki does.
Right.
He was never able to do what Solo did. Basically,
I kind of agree with you in the sense that when and this is why I was hesitant to like give him the full credit for the VP run, because I don't necessarily think that he was the key element of that Virtus Pro run either.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, before he joined Navi, like that Power Rangers lineup that he brought to life, and that's the reason why he got picked up by Navi. 100% him basically leading a bunch of nobodies
Yeah.
to like European or like CIS sort of like fame at that point in time. Again, but again, this is like 6 years ago now, so everything you accomplished 6 years ago doesn't necessarily mean shit today. But I do think that he has that potential to make like the sum of the parts more than they actually are. But again, this is something to be seen. CIS, like every season, we have a CIS team that comes up at like a certain point in time and looks good, but it's just gonna
Usually
fall
Empire.
down. Well, yeah, Empire. We've also seen like the Windstrike last season, for example.
Yeah.
We've seen a couple of these teams, right? That always
like,
just show up like randomly during like one event.
But like,
oh,
they all have they all have the same Achilles heel. Like they don't have a leader.
Yeah. I mean, that's like CIS. That's a big CIS problem in general, right? And this is why I put so much faith almost in Gambit, because they do have a leader that has a proven track record.
But like his proven track record was like years ago.
I know, but I mean, it's still better than anybody else in CS has to offer, really.
You know, outside of solo, but yeah.
Yeah.
Like I know what you mean. It's just like he's the best of the rest, and that's not like I'll put it this way. I think Gambit is exactly where they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
They're not overachieving. They're not underachieving. They're actually about where I'd put FNG if I thought FNG was if FMG was as good as he used to be, basically.
But, and this is where we come to like the group. This group in particular has two teams right now that aren't necessarily the strongest either. Team Liquid obviously losing or making a roster change. Yeah, a new player can revitalize them, but it could also like stagger them for a while, but until they figure out how to play this new sort of like roster. And then Infamous, I mean,
yeah,
it's Infamous. This team was, I believe they weren't even the first in the South American qualifier. I believe they came second after Pain.
Mm-hmm.
So like this team isn't even particularly strong in the South American region. Obviously, it's a bunch of European players if you actually look at it, and they have some really high quality players in terms of like individual skill. Like I think if this team played in the open qualifier in Europe, they would have a good shot of being like third or fourth, maybe. Like
no man, I don't believe Black.
I'm saying third, like after NIP Alliance.
Oh, okay.
NIP Alliance. Like, don't get me wrong. Like,
I thought you meant like third after like Secret
no,
X. Like, come on, man.
No. I'm saying like if the close qualify happened tomorrow, considering NIP is actually already in it, it would probably be Alliance first, and this lineup could maybe feasibly get third or second. I wouldn't even say second. That's how bad I think this lineup is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not that bad either.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and say the best thing Infamous have done so far and will likely do is they allowed Black to add another region he's technically played for. He's collecting stamps across the world.
Kind of is, doesn't he? I want to take a look at his passport. The thing must look wild.
Yeah, the only guy that's done more than him is maybe Demon. Actually, no, Demon's never gone to China, has he?
Yeah, Demon's never gone to China. His stints in Europe have been like short term as well.
Brief.
Like, if Black goes somewhere, he commits. He stays there for like a year or two.
Oh, man. He's a true world warrior.
Yeah,
he's straight out of Street Fighter, just traveling the world.
I think we all agree that EG is an easy first place here in this group.
Yeah, like they have to really fuck up.
Yeah,
they have to really fuck up not to get first. And even then, like I'd still think that they at least get second, no matter what happens.
I guess the second best team still Liquid.
Yeah, I'd still go with Liquid. Like
I feel like on a bad day, even Miracle should still crush these teams by himself.
Yeah, like I like remember that I don't know if you watched it, but basically Heen came out with a video explaining like the effect of like having a stand-in, and basically he's like it doesn't really change that much. Is basically what his thing was, like because the entire method of the team is still there technically. So, assuming they don't pick up Bulba again, which obviously they won't, I think it's fine. Like,
no, I agree.
Like you have to get that bad of a player before like everything like really goes to shit. I think, and at least in Dota.
Remember when they played that one Chinese event with Shadow as a stand-in? I mean, they still owned.
Yeah, it's
That's
someone that.
how,
Yeah,
that's how legit this lineup is, and like that's how also like um how like good their teamwork is. They can make up for these like small hiccups and like I don't know. This Liquid is just the sort of like team coordination and teamwork they've been able to accomplish with this lineup is just out of this world. And I think if they have a very capable replacement for Matumba, they're going to be like a top 4 team in the world again.
yeah. If like I said,
If
we don't really have good choices right now. So
right, right.
all right, Group
Group
C,
C.
Virtus.pro, Alliance, Forward, and Vici. Now this one's a bit more curious than the last one. So I think we both are going to pick Virtus.pro number 1.
Yeah.
Like even if they're not. Go ahead.
As somebody that's been really excited about this Alliance lineup from the start of the season, I'm just really happy for them that they get to play these teams, all these different teams in a group. Because
you already know they're going to lose, aren't they?
They're very likely going to lose, but look, they're going to play Virtus.pro, they're going to play Forward and Vici Gaming. That's 3 different regions. That's 3 different, vastly different play styles too.
Mm-hmm.
This is so much valuable experience for Alliance. Honestly, you'd think any other season they'd be like a TI contender, like a contender for like a TI spot, right?
Yeah.
But they have like literally the worst luck ever with like Secret, Liquid, NIP, OG all in front of them.
Hey, it's a good time
but
to
still,
be in Europe.
I think this Alliance lineup has improved a lot since the start of the season. I honestly, halfway through, I thought this was the end for them, and they probably should consider doing a change. I still think if they want to go that next step, they probably should. But for this season right now, I think getting to TI is not impossible, or rather, it's very likely because the rest of Europe is pretty trash. And even at TI then itself, I think they have a pretty good chance of like upsetting here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Even at this tournament, I think they have a good chance of like upsetting. I think they could honestly beat Forward. I think Forward is a much weaker team than they are.
Actually, yeah, Forward is really bad.
Vici Gaming is always, to me, is always going to be a toss up. Like
against anybody.
Against anybody, really. They can be last place. They can be 4th or 3rd.
They could beat Secret.
They could beat Secret, but they can also lose to like, I don't know, who did they lose to at that last event? I don't know.
I forget. It was like somebody ridiculous. Like, god damn it.
Yeah.
It was like one of those feelings.
Oh yeah, they lost to Gambit.
Yeah, they lost to Gambit.
They lost to Gambit. So again, I think honestly, I think second place in this group isn't necessarily as
out of reach as it seems.
Yeah, but I still would put Vici Gaming there just because on a regular day, Vici Gaming is the second team here in this group. Safe. Honestly, Virtus.pro is also so inconsistent in terms of like group stage performances that Vici Gaming could also just take first. I think.
Yeah,
it's not even that out of the question.
Yeah, I will say like I think Alliance and Vici have like similar properties except on different levels. And what I mean by that is like Vici can't perform consistently when you get to like the top 4, top 6 of a tournament, and generally like the biggest ones. And Alliance just generally can't perform under high pressure situations. Doesn't matter if it's online or on LAN.
Oh. And this is why I think this is like really good for them in terms of experience, because you could already see it actually at the minor. I think under high pressure they did perform pretty well, like against NFP.
Better. I think there were times where like they were really bad.
No, 100%. But they were much better than at previous LAN events, and I think this is the why I like, as somebody, I guess you could call me like an Alliance fan this season, because again I was very bullish on this team very early on, and I've been saying from the get go, they just need LAN experience. Because they don't get to go to that many LANs, because again, all these European teams, all these European teams are already taking their spots. So I am genuinely excited to see them perform here and then improve from the future. But for now, again, probably like a 3rd, 4th performance in this group, maybe 2nd.
All right, last group is LGD, OG, NIP, TNC.
The group of death.
Yeah, I actually don't. Actually, I'm gonna go out on a limb. And I think LGD is gonna get first. Like, I think they're still the favorites, even if like they're kind of vulnerable, all things considered.
Yeah, I agree. I think LGD on most days should beat these teams.
But beat these 3. The real question is who you have second, because I think NIP OG is a literal coin toss.
I mean,
and I think TNC could beat either of them.
TNC, I was about ready to write them off this season, but then there was this one. I'm trying to think. Oh, Mumbai. It was Mumbai. Again, I was ready to write them off this season, and maybe I'm rating Mumbai a little bit too highly considering the teams that were there. but I don't know. I think they've been sort of like shaping up again. Probably still put them last place, and I think right now NIP I see them a little bit above OG, mostly because they have that momentum coming in from the minor, but also because I've just seen more from them than from OG, really,
I mean,
especially on LAN.
here's the thing about TNC, and the reason why I have a little bit more faith in them than maybe you do is because, like, I was with you. Like, TNC was kind of like just a throwaway team up until they got Heen.
They did pick up Heat. No, you're right.
And Heen is like a really good coach, I think. I think he had some level of impact on Liquid. I did talk to him. I think we have like similar sort of principles about the game. Or maybe he was teaching me about the game. Whatever you want to look at it. But basically, like he does fill a void that SEA kind of needed the entire time, which we talked about earlier, which is kind of like the leadership role. And even though he was basically the co-leader of Kuroki, he can, because this guy's basically won TI. All other 5 players are going to listen to him.
Oh no, sorry about that. You're absolutely right. And the tournament that I was referring to was actually Birmingham. They placed only quote unquote only 5th, 6th, but they placed second in their group, which I think was really notable.
Right
and
after Heen joined. Just saying.
The teams that they lost to were EG and Secret, who eventually got into the finals of that event, right?
Yeah.
So for all we know, this team could have been like the 3rd best team at this tournament.
Right.
So I do agree with you that TNC is on like an upwards trajectory.
Yeah.
But I still think it might not be enough just yet for this tournament, because I personally think that NIP has been improving a little bit as well throughout like their throughout the last couple of weeks. Even at this minor, I thought they improved a little bit. Although I will say that anything that I did take away from the minor might not be that valuable, considering the minor literally had some of the worst Dota I've seen in a while.
Yes.
And then OG, I think OG on a good day should beat TNC. So I just think right now TNC might be last in this group, but
I mean, here's the weird thing about TNC OG, or actually any OG matchup. OG plays so fucking weird that I think
they do.
I think any team might have a shot against them because we literally don't know how that matchup looks like.
It is no 100%. Like that team plays such weird Dota that they almost always take a game off any opponent, because their drafting and their like play style is just so unpredictable. And they
like the only normal guy they have is Jerax, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Like everybody else plays so weird.
Yeah, pretty much. And Jerax is not even the best player on the team right now.
Yeah. So like there you go. Like I think OG is always going to be like this. At least this current lineup is always going to be very dangerous. Like I don't think they'll ever be like a top team. I think the top team you have to be super solid to do that. But this OG lineup would be like, on a good day, they could ruin somebody's day.
Yeah, that's going to be fun at TI. That's going to be fun at TI when they suddenly start like eliminating title favorites or something.
They could totally do that too. So, like I think that's how. Even though we over romanticize that TI, I think that's part of the reason like they beat so many good teams is like so many of their players have such weird hero pools.
I agree.
All right, and then I'm gonna trail back a bit to NIP because I actually think if I had to pick a team to get out of second after LGD, I'd pick NIP.
Yeah, pretty much the same. I do think that they have a much more consistent sort of like approach to the game.
I think basically Bristleback 3-3 is going to run these guys down. That's my prediction.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, you know?
Yeah, like
And they always have the Ace Meepo thing in the back too. And this is something I've always said about Ace, right? If he can expand his hero pool where he's comfortable on like every normal carry, he's gonna be the most dangerous carry player in the fucking world, because he can just whip out a Meepo, whip out a Brute Mother or whatever, and just own everybody.
That's such a big if though. Like there's I
know.
Like those types of players almost never get the normal hero pool because they spend so much time on the weird shit.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? But yeah, like I think basically like this particular patch has like activated a few answers for NIP, and PPD's like, oh, finally I have more cards to work with. So I think that's kind of what happened. I also think PyCat obviously must be helping a bit. So there you go. All right. Who do you have? All right, let's just pick the top four, top four teams. I think they're pretty clear cut, but I think Secret number one. Then your choice of number two, whether that's Virtus Pro or actually it's probably just going to be Virtus Pro. Number three obviously is EG. And who do you have as fourth? I think fourth would probably be the hardest to pick.
Fourth is hard, just because I think there's a lot of teams with question marks behind them. Right now, I think it's most likely going to be LGD.
LGD haven't actually beaten a top team this season.
I know, but at the same time, you don't necessarily even need to if you want to get to the top four. That's the funny thing too.
Yeah.
But I agree that LGD might not be the best team in this season. Might not be. I think at the end of the season, we might not even look at LGD as the best Chinese team. But I do think that right now they probably still have the biggest chance of being fourth. I kind of want to say NIP, but I don't know, man.
No, NIP feels pretty dangerous. Like here's my problem, right? I don't believe in LGD anymore because I think here's my problem with LGD. FY is a literal god right now, and they still can't beat the top teams.
Yeah, that's true.
Like that's my problem. Like if you have a guy that good and you can't beat the top teams, there's something fundamentally wrong with the team. Like that, I just can't believe in it. So my other two choices are like I guess my other three choices are like OG, super fucking weird. Don't want to bet on that. And then Vici and NIP, who are super gambly. Like I don't know who I'm supposed to bet on here.
That's a fair point. Could almost argue that the whole playing at the minor might even play against NIP, because it exposes their gameplay and game tactics towards everybody else a little bit more. But at the same time, as we've established, PPD and double limb is a fickle
thing to bet against.
So I feel like NIP might not be a bad bet, but that wouldn't. Again, this is a weird tournament. Also because, and I think this just shouldn't be underestimated, this is like the last big event before TI, right?
Yeah.
How many teams are really going to give it 100% their all? I think Virtus Pro, you were able to tell early on at the end of the season that they aren't necessarily giving it their all.
I think they straight up said they weren't.
Yeah, so I wouldn't if they don't even make top four, I wouldn't even look at it really weirdly because
here's my problem with Virtus Pro. Like I'm fine with them doing that for like the second they won the first one, right? The major, they won the first major. I'm like, fine, you can take the rest of the year off. Because here's my thing about Virtus Pro: they've technically already accomplished almost everything you wanted to do as a 5-man roster outside of TI.
Yeah. Right.
Like they're like another team where like if somebody said they're the greatest lineup of all time in Dota 2, like I'd be like, yeah, that's a fair pick. All things considered, what they've done with this 5-man lineup. But like they haven't won TI yet, right? So that's obviously the thing to focus towards. And I think here's my problem with you can't go into TI like rusty. Like I think like they don't have to try their all here, but they have to like put enough focus in to like feel like the competitive fire again.
No, for sure, and I agree with that. Like I agree with that. You can't just ignite that fire like 2 weeks before TI and be like, yeah, sure, I'm fine now. Like this is something that has to like come from it has to always be there.
Or you end up like Astralis.
This is why I kind of hope that Secret's also going to give it their all, even though they have also all the reason not to.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time,
Secret has been trying all season, man.
Yeah.
Like, I think they might end up like Liquid, like last season. I think there's a chance. Or like Liquid tried so fucking hard last season, and then like at the very end they ran out of steam.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it's not like you can take a break here or now. Like it's too late. You just gotta keep going and hope you don't run out of steam at TI.
But again, though, and this doesn't necessarily even have to be like a conscious thing either, right? This doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, I can relax. It could just be like I don't have to like play 100% anymore because this is not for everything. Whereas a team like Alliance, like every game for them is like,
I think Alliance and OG. I think Alliance,
this,
OG,
like TI.
I think Alliance, OG, and RNG are gonna play like fucking balls out.
I mean, pretty much
because they need the fucking spot.
Yeah, every team that's not qualified for TI.
I think TNT will be like similar too.
TNC. I mean, obviously the South American teams, but like their best is still not going to be enough. Gambit. I mean,
No,
this
like
Gambit in front of their home crowd.
I feel like Gambit, like the difference between like Gambit and the teams I picked out is I don't think Gambit will feel threatened if they have to go to the regionals.
That's also true.
Like I think those teams I picked out, every one of them will be like, fuck, if I go to the regionals, I might just die. Like OG and if you go like OG and Alliance, like imagine for a second neither of them get the points needed to qualify, and like all the other teams are filled. One of them are gonna have to die because only one spot. So both of them are gonna go balls out on this one, right?
Well, for sure.
TNC
sure.
like they've never been consistent enough to like dominate SEA. They got to win this for sure. Yeah. But Gambit, I think Gambit will fucking dominate CIS if it comes down to it.
Not difficult for sure.
Yeah, like and RNG, like, do they really want to play King Gaming back there or whoever the fuck?
eHome, Vici, I don't know. It's not Vici's actually qualified already.
Serious or whoever the fuck they were playing. Like there's some dangerous teams down there in China. They not be like good teams or even like the tier 2 teams, but they're good enough to beat RNG straight up. You don't want to go down there if you're them. So that's why I think those teams in particular I picked out gonna have to go balls to the wall here.
No, definitely agree, and this is why this is just one of the many reasons why I think this tournament is probably going to be one of the best this season. Just because we now truly have like a good representation of like some of the best teams in the world, like the top 16 teams in the world. There's so much on the line here right now. There's a new patch, new meta. It's sort of already established for like it started, like I think the patch came in like about a week and a half ago, so now people have sort of like been adapting to it already. And I mean, I don't know. I'm just really excited.
I think patches like have a longer life than people give them credit for.
I agree.
What I mean by that is like we can go 3 months into this patch, probably shit will still change. Shit will keep changing forever.
Hey, I work for Dota Buff, and one of my big jobs was to always like identify meta sort of like changes and shifts, and would always write articles about it. And there was like this dry spell after like a TI, and people were like, "Hey, the meta is so stale." And I was like, "Is it really though?" Because in the pubs already there's like a shift in like, you know, people are suddenly starting to pick this and suddenly doing this and that. And if Valve just never changed the patch ever again, the meta would still evolve.
Yeah, I think you'd end up in like a Brood War situation almost, right? So, I think that's just how deep Dota can go, but obviously because like Ice Frog is Ice Frog, he's like we always need more, and I'll give credit to Ice Frog or the developers who are pretending to be Ice Frog if Ice Frog is gone. However that relationship exactly works, like they've always made sure like there's as large of a toolkit as possible for players to express themselves. So yeah, I guess. Oh yeah, one last thing. I guess we didn't put this in the topics, but what do you think of PPD's State of the Union?
So first of all, I think it's really important that players are the ones to address this, because it's clear that they are the ones that have the voice to change things. It's kind of ironic though that even though they are voicing these things, that they aren't unionizing, similar to how the CS guys do it. I
mean, PPD can only do so much, man. No, he literally tried to make a union. It's just too hard.
Right. But then, you know, in CS, it worked out. Like now, Valve changed the dates for the major according to the player, or to the player break. So there would only be upsides. But again, that aside, I do think it was very necessary, and he has a lot of good points, especially when it comes to seeding at these events. The fact that the double qualifier needs to go for sure. I'm not entirely sure, or I'm not sure if I entirely agree on eliminating minors, but making sure you remove the sort of like double qualifiers like week in, week out is definitely something that needs to go. Like I don't know, there's actually even more things that I would like to add to that need to change on like a smaller scale. For example, right now there's no break between open qualifier and closed qualifier. That's actually brutal. Especially since open qualifiers can last until like 6 a.m. There was actually a case about 2 years ago where a team played open qualifier until like 7 a.m. because of, you know, how the games worked out. Yeah. And then they had to jump into the closed qualifier at 11 that same day. And it's just really stupid that this can happen. And this is another. It's just further proof, effectively, that this needs to change, and that Valve needs to be a little bit more proactive when it comes to designing this ecosystem. But yeah, I hope that this at least gives them an idea of like things to change, like especially the crucial things to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically, I think PBD, if he ever does finish his Dota 2 career, perfect choice for a Dota 2 commissioner. You're saying
He would be. He would be. But at the same time, I mean, I think, as far as I know, Valve has been very adamant about not getting a commissioner, a dedicated commissioner.
Obviously, because the problem with the commissioner is you can't do the thing that Valve does with all their games. Where it's like, yeah, I simultaneously take responsibility and don't take responsibility for all actions. That's kind of the Valve way of doing things.
Do you? I know this is like very impromptu, but do you also want to talk then about Blizzard, because they have a wave of like employees ditching the company?
Okay. You want to talk about Blizzard? We may as well do it for a little bit. So, I actually didn't follow the entire story. But I do know like their commissioner was like, "I'm out," right?
Right. So the Overwatch commissioner ducked out and he joined Epic, which I think, like, no. I shouldn't shit on Epic in this podcast, but the esports approach isn't exactly the best, considering how many balance changes they drop a day before a big tournament.
Shout out to Fortnite.
But it should go to show that the commissioner chooses the job at Epic over a job at Overwatch League, or at Blizzard rather.
Yeah,
Blizzard. I have a lot of respect for Blizzard, but now it's not just Blizzard anymore; it's Activision Blizzard, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's like their report from Richard Lewis. I think it's pretty. I mean, I trust Richard Lewis, and I mean this is something that I've even heard outside of his report too. That the decisions that are being made at Activision Blizzard aren't necessarily in line with what people that have a lot like literally decades of experience in esports. They are against a lot of these decisions that are being made.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
And this is why a lot of the people that are involved in the esports side of Blizzard are now gone, or are being left, or are being like either they're free to go, or they chose to go themselves. Like
like Kim Fan is out, right? And she's basically I'll go ahead and say this, not a StarCraft podcast. I'm pretty sure that means StarCraft is dead.
Yeah,
that's my guess.
Sounds about right.
And I don't mean like dead in the literal sense, obviously, because I think here's the thing about every game that isn't Heroes of the Storm. As long as you technically start as a grassroots scene, you can never technically die. But if you go like the fucking Blizzard route, you instantly die if they pull the plug. So,
I mean, ask Heroes of the Storm if they think their scene is still alive, or their game is still alive. And like even Heroes of the Storm, I'm pretty sure is a decision that wasn't necessarily being made by like people that have been with Blizzard for like years.
Mm-hmm.
I think this was like a very, very, very sort of like conservative decision, because I'm like, Blizzard to me has always been a company that, how every second brand in gaming and esports has a slogan like "by gamers for gamers."
Yeah.
Right. To me, Blizzard has always been the company that has been for gamers by actual gamers. Like the people that interacted with you, or that created games, were people that you could meet in the server, that were literally some of the most hardcore people, right? And they've been hiring some of the most hardcore people. I mean, Kim Fan was one of the best examples. She was super hardcore on like Team Liquid and on the forums, and she was super hardcore on like, she had her own website or her own forum or whatever.
Played Warcraft 3 professionally, as far as I remember.
Yeah, and played WoW as well, I believe. So like these things, like these people that they hired, they mattered, and they sort of like knew the core sort of like identity of Blizzard. And now they're all, or not all of them, but a lot of them are gone. Like Mike Morhaime left. In Hearthstone, Ben Brode left. Like there's some super crucial personnel leaving this company.
Yeah, like I did meet Mike Morhaime once in it was a StarCraft summit. I think the NDA is basically over in that one. It happened like years ago. But basically, the read I got on him was like, he legitimate, like if I had a guess, I think the reason StarCraft got so much more money, even though the ROI in no way I thought, like, because at the time like StarCraft viewership was decreasing, like I thought like the investment levels they were giving it in no way justified it, right? I think it was like literally a legacy project, And I think part of it was just because he, as a player, actually liked playing that game.
Yeah.
Right. And so like I think that's kind of like the thing. That's kind of like the shift that's happened in Blizzard was like all these people who all these people who originally built it are basically getting kicked out, and like you're now getting guys who are like, how come you guys aren't happy that we sold you a Diablo 2 reskin on your mobile game? Don't you guys have phones? Like people like that. It's like, oh, this is not gonna be good.
Literally the trend that Blizzard, like the trend that has been sort of like happening in Blizzard for the last couple of years, it feels like very fiscal decisions being made over like decisions that would say sort of like stay true to the philosophy and identity of like the core Blizzard like
Of what made Blizzard
audience and
originally
family.
great.
Exactly what makes Blizzard Blizzard, or made Blizzard Blizzard, right? But right now it just feels like, yeah, how do we get the most money out of anything, really? I mean, that's why I imagine this is one of the reasons why they cut like 800 employees, over 800, I believe.
Richard Lewis has a line like most profitable year of our company, cut 800 employees. Like, which one is it?
These things, like, this is not the Blizzard that sort of like the community sort of like built up, because Blizzard very much lives or got successful through its community, because it has one of the most hardcore communities in the entire world. So I don't know, it just feels really weird right now, and this is why I wanted to bring it up, because we mentioned like, oh, commissioner for Dota, like commissioner for Overwatch League literally left for Epic.
Yeah.
Epic, whose esports program is like, hey, we have a tournament, let's break the game.
I will say this. I don't necessarily know if Nate Nanzer is like,
right,
if he did it for philosophical reasons. I will say, at least monetarily, it makes a lot of sense.
No, for sure. And I mean, it's probably not even fair to like use Nate Nanzer as like the best example for this, because he wasn't exactly like,
he wasn't exactly a new old guy, was he?
Exactly. He just joined himself about like 2 or 3 years ago, whatever. But still, it just feels a little bit weird what's happening at Blizzard now, with also with a supposed COD franchising, potentially even getting rid of MLG, or sort of like breaking apart what made MLG up. Because also the MLG folks also slowly but surely leaving, and
yeah, exact same scenario. Same scenario across the board if you think about it. Like, it's not just MLG and Blizzard, it's also like happened to Optic, basically. Like, Hex is out, right?
Yeah.
And like basically Optic became like a really shit competitive team right after he got removed.
Yeah, and this is what happens when esports is not being run by people that built it, but rather by people who invested money into it.
Yeah.
I
mean, if they want, like, I guess here's the thing I'd say is like if you cash out like Hex did, or like Blizzard did, or MLG did, then I don't necessarily know if I have that much sympathy for it. Like, it's hard for me to say out from the outside, but it's like, I mean, we all knew this choice was going to happen, right?
Right.
So there you go.
100%, and I love that you put it that way, because there are people that, oh, I still feel so sorry about like to Hex, like what would happen to like his brand. Like, I mean, he's the one that sold it.
Yeah.
It's not like it was ripped from him. He was like, yeah, sure, I'll take the money. Plus, he's now building he's supposedly building his new brand,
or he was trying to rebuy his old brand.
Yeah, or whatever. Blizzard, again, well, I guess it's a little bit different with Blizzard, because obviously the decision to sell wasn't, or decision to get acquired or whatever, wasn't exactly made by everybody. It was obviously like a board kind of decision. So people, like Kim Fan or whatever, aren't necessarily,
or weren't even part of that. Like, of course,
yeah,
they were just there for the ride.
Yeah. So I definitely feel bad for them, but no, you're definitely right. People like that did make the decision to sell. Like, I think this could even go back to Alex Garfield and Evil Geniuses, when he sold to Amazon.
When EG literally went to, I won't say, actually, I'll go ahead and say literal shit outside of Dota. Like, I think Dota was literally propped up by PPD.
It's actually incredible how that organization stayed alive. Same with Alliance, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Big props to both organizations to actually staying alive, because they were dead in the water. They had no money. Neither of them had any money. Basically no money to speak of anyway, especially considering that EG had to pay like these big salaries to their players, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's incredible how they both built themselves up from the ground again. Both are actually not very, but prosperous sort of like organizations right now. It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about it because I think this is something that probably will affect a lot more people than we might think right now. Because it's actually worth noting, for example, that Phenol, the infamous Phenol pause in Dota.
Uh-huh.
There's like he was one of the big devs at Valve. He left for Blizzard about a year or two ago, but now he's back with Valve. And this is like one of these things that I think people might notice sooner than later, that all the big talent that are leaving Blizzard and leaving Activision, they're going to go somewhere and they're going to do something big. So I'm looking forward to what, for example, Ben Brode, he started like his own game dev company, what they're going to accomplish if MLG really get rid of all these people. That's again big talent to be picked up somewhere,
I
and I
mean,
hope that
I don't know if
you
you
know
saw this, but basically Adam Apicella, the MLG guy, basically said he thinks he could solve the entire Dota 2 circuit in like
I know
10
I saw that.
seconds.
I was like, and I
He,
and I
he thinks
believe
he can
him.
solve it in 10 seconds. I'm like, if this was anybody else, I'd call bullshit, but technically you might actually have an
Dude,
answer.
he single-handedly has been keeping the COD scene alive for like the last,
Like if there's anybody
I
who
don't know how many
might
years.
like anybody who I believe like, yeah, you just give me like 10 seconds, I could totally solve this. Like maybe he's like one of those guys.
Yeah, and I would love to see him try out. And this is one of these things where I think sometime down the line, Valve could be persuaded to potentially change their stance on like the Dota sort of like ecosystem.
No,
We
I
shall
don't
see.
like I don't think it's gonna happen because I think here's my thing about I guess life in general is like your personality and your philosophy, it just bleeds over into everything you fucking do, right? And
That's
then the
true.
way Valve is as a work culture, as the things we've heard, like they simultaneously want you to have freedom, but simultaneously want you to like do what they say. So they're always like they prefer this opaque sort of stance. Is just what I'm saying. So I
I,
don't think it'll happen.
I will say that they have been known to sort of like be open to a little like experimentation when it comes to a couple of things here and there. I remember I wanted to say TI6, was it? They gave Red Eye full control of like the show effectively, right? They basically, well, not full control, but they effectively hired him not only as a host but also like as a
As the
as
producer,
a, consultant and producer, right? And yeah, they scrapped that idea very quickly afterwards, and they even intervened with some of his, or they vetoed some of his ideas. But still, it does show that they are, I guess, not always, but at least sometimes, still looking to change things up a little bit. And I think
I mean
once
they
Adam, if Adam does become available, I don't know. Maybe it's just wishful thinking, but I think there's a future in which Adam might become involved in Dota and could, at the very least, sort of not necessarily even on the Valve end, but maybe like
MLG
any
Columbus
tournament. I mean,
returns.
realistically, any tournament organizer would want somebody like Adam on their side. I think.
Mm-hmm. All right, I think about covers it for like this
Yeah.
general esports topic. All right, go move on to Counter Strike. So there are multiple roster moves that have been made recently. Let's start with NIP, right? So basically,
Fresh out of the oven.
yeah, straight up today. Basically, NIP announced multiple roster changes. First, they're going to remove Dennis, get Plopsky, and then they also said, as an afternote, oh, Get Right will probably play up until the major, and at that point, we're probably going to transition him to a different role in the company, right? Basically, kind of announcing his retirement, but not announcing his retirement in a weird way, right?
Sort
And
of. It feels kind of weird because they're the ones to announce it, and it's not that he was the one to announce it.
yeah, so I'm not exactly
Um,
sure how that dynamic works. But I'll go ahead and say this. I think, like, I forget where it was I read it, but basically, like, one of the players did confirm Get Right was leading the last tournament they went to, and the fact that Get Right was leading the last tournament they went to basically tells me they basically that's basically the Hail Mary. Like they're like, if Get Right can't lead, I don't think we can keep him. That's what the team was saying by doing that move, and since they failed that tournament, they're probably going to my read on it is they're probably going to remove Get Right after the major.
which is fair. I think Get Right was one of these players that, similar to Virtus Pro, like the entire Virtus Pro lineup, effectively, like, oh yeah, once in a while, you can see them like doing like really, really well, and he's had performances in the last 2 years where he was like, oh, it's Get Right back. It's like, oh, this is like great, but ever so often he also just disappeared. Was just an anchor, really, like a bad anchor type of
Mm-hmm.
anchor. So I think just from a pure performance perspective, it makes sense to cut him from the roster.
Yeah.
Whether or not he wants to retire, or whether or not he should retire, I feel like that's always a difficult call to make for somebody that's only been with one lineup. And this is why I like almost criticize people that's or with one team. That's why I criticize people that always stick with the same organization. Shout out to Dendy, by the way. I love him, but I feel like he should have left Navi like ages ago because like you
Or
cannot.
not. I know. I don't think he should have left Navi. I think Navi should have kicked him. That's
both
a different.
sides. I mean, both sides actually. I think both like Navi definitely should have kicked him, but I also think he should have left him from on his own accord because I think if there's one thing that I've learned in esports is that you need to broaden your horizon, and you can only do that when you play with different kinds of people. And I feel like Get Right could have benefited from playing with people that aren't necessarily like in his comfort zone, meaning maybe playing an international lineup, not fully Swedish lineup, you know.
Hey, you know what? That face squad picked up Neo recently.
And you know, I think this was really honestly, I thought that was a pretty smart idea from them.
Mm-hmm.
All things considered, anyway.
Yeah. So I'll say this about Get Right. I'm almost certain this guy has never like stopped practicing. And the fact that he's never stopped practicing tells me there's not much more you can get out of him. And that's kind of painful, but like you don't have that fucking stupid argument people try to bring up like, yeah man, hard work always beats talent, or there's no such thing as talent. Like, come on, if there was no such thing as talent, Get Right I think would literally be like one of the top players still, because I think this guy works super fucking hard from everything I've ever heard about this guy.
Right? And go ahead.
So basically, like the fact that he can't be that good anymore just kind of tells me like it's kind of over for Get Right. At least they're a top team. Like, here's the thing. I think I don't think he can play as a top team anymore, but I think he can do what Taz is doing if he's serious about it, which is like not be a leader of like a young Swedish team, but like be the veteran, be like the guy who's like he plays with them. He teaches them like how to deal with the land. He teaches them because he has a shit ton of knowledge in his fucking head, like a shit ton of knowledge, right? Like just the way he plays, just the way he thinks about the game. Like I don't think all that is instinctual. I think he built it over time, and so I think in that way he can always be a valuable resource if he wants to keep playing.
Yeah, and this is why I think he should have gone out of his comfort zone maybe a long time ago, and maybe like build a completely new roster around himself with, maybe youngsters or just people he can just teach. But I feel like just sticking with like one or two players that he's always known and like constantly kicking everybody that's new and just rebuilding around these like people is just not necessarily the way to go about it.
Mm-hmm. And then the other part of the roster move was kicking out Dennis and getting Plopsky. I will say this: I think Dennis has been, even though he's been criticized for his bad play, and I think that's like justified. I actually don't think he's a bad player. I just think this is the wrong team for him. I think it's always been the wrong team for him. But we'll see. Like, I think here's the thing. Like, if there was a team, I'd say like I think the perfect roster for him is Fnatic. I think you put that guy on Fnatic, the way Fnatic play a loose individual chaos style, like that's like that needs a lot of space creators. I think Dennis could work in that lineup pretty well, but we'll see, I guess. But like the problem I guess with Fnatic is he literally takes like JW's roles, and that's actually the reason like old Fnatic broke up. So maybe not.
Reminds me of the period with like RTZ switching between Secret and EG, and then all those memes where like, oh, you just take off your jersey and he's like wearing like the EG jersey underneath.
Yeah, and then so yeah, I don't think it's anywhere close to over for Dennis, but maybe his rep has been hurt a little by his time in NIP. And then as for Plopsky, like I think it's the right move for NIP. You gotta get, if you're gonna stick with a Swedish roster, may as well go with young, untested talent. Like, and I mean this is actually untested. It's not like fucking Draken, where like you spent like 2 years with this guy on different teams and he hasn't done anything. No, well, not anything. But he hasn't like really popped off as he should have. So yeah, I think that's a good move. All right, the next roster move is Optic, right? Or the Optic situation. So basically, here's what happened. Right, here's what happened. I'll summarize it. Basically, Rogue was like, "Fuck, Cadian left for North," and for some reason, North wanted Cadian. That's fucking weird. And then, funnily enough, they kicked Cadian, and now they're a good team because Valde's leading. Like, what the fuck was that? But moving on from that, they got MSL. right? And then MSL did his things like, okay, we're gonna make this good team, and then they got good enough to start qualifying for lands, and then Optic's like, oh shit, maybe this MSL guy is pretty good, and then they pick up MSL, and then MSL does what Snappy has failed to do for the last year and a half, is he actually made a good team with Snappy as a player. He resurrected Config, made Config a star again. He made Refresh better. Like he basically put all the pieces into place. And then just as like the Optic Danish lineup is looking good, Optic buy out Immortals, which is actually MIBR in this case. And now
Immortals buy out Optic.
Oh yeah, Immortals buy out Optic. And now like they have to choose between MIBR and this Danish lineup. They're obviously going to choose MIBR. Way more money in that. They built on a fucking entire brand around it. So I think the irony here is like Optic's just gonna get kicked out.
Yep, Optic's gonna get kicked out because most likely, and this is something that most people have been, I think, very correctly speculating. They've been sort of like trying to Immortals that is. They've been trying to build brands that are just tied to like a specific game.
Yeah.
Right? So Optic is gonna be most likely gonna be their Call of Duty franchise, which means that there's no space for CS, and they already, as you mentioned, they already have a CS team, and they're
not a good one.
Sure
but
well, yeah, I'm pretty sure they're not even allowed to even own both.
No, you can't have to. Valve won't allow it. ESL won't allow it.
So I'm like, this is out of the question. This is going to be a sell. The question is, which organization is going to pick them up?
I'm gonna go ahead. I don't know who's going to pick them up. I will say, if TSM was ever serious about getting a CS:GO team, this is the team they have to pick up.
It'd be hilarious though if they pick up another Danish team after.
Gotta do it. Those Danes are so good.
I heard communication with Danish people was a little bit difficult last time around.
It's okay. They got that Bjergsen guy in their League of Legends team. Just have him be the liaison this time. Stop fucking around with these Americans. But no, seriously though, like I'm not even sure what other team is interested in CS:GO right now. That's like my question. Right?
That's a very good point. Yeah.
Like unless the rumors are true, where like there's some kind of franchise league coming up from Valve or whoever, like they're not going to be that many interested CS:GO parties because it's not like guaranteed money like Overwatch League. Well, technically Overwatch League isn't. League of Legends, I guess, would be closer.
I mean, Cloud9 could always pick them up. It's not like their roster.
No, Cloud9 won't. Right here's the reason Cloud9 won't pick them up is because no matter what they do from now on, they must always keep Automatic because Automatic has literally sacrificed his career to them. Like, they're like, here's the thing: like, sports technically don't know loyalty, but what Automatic has basically done for them, like, basically, like, there should be like a fucking blood pact. They're like, we will literally take care of Automatic for the rest of our fucking lives for what he has like sacrificed for this fucking team. Like, Jesus Christ. But yeah, like I like if it was Cloud9, they should probably if I was them, I'd probably be like, maybe just get MSL and Config and Refresh. 3 Danes, Cajun B and Automatic. Let's go.
Oh, you know what the most obvious answer actually to this question is? It's why not just 100 Thieves? Jacob, the guy that literally brought all these Danes to Optic.
He just joined 100 Thieves, didn't he?
He just joined 100 Thieves. So I feel like that's the most obvious answer.
Here's how Malk should do it, right? Because I'm gonna always keep calling him Malk because that's his pro name.
Yeah.
And that will always be one of his personas, right? Since he's joined 100 Thieves, what he should do is he should just wait until like TSM is about to buy them and then just steal them. That's what he should do. As in true thief-like fashion.
Just because he can.
Yeah, why not? But no, I think that's actually a good choice because 100 Thieves were interested in a CS:GO roster a long time ago, but fucking those Brazilian guys all burned them. So
that was rough.
That's too bad because they look like a fucking legit org too.
Yeah, 100 Thieves looks. I mean, they just got like big investments from like Drake and all these like other investors. So they're building their own esports facility as well. And I mean, Nadeshot has always been a guy that knows how to appeal to the community. So I feel like, 100 Thieves is like a cool brand. It's sort of like FaZe in that sense, right? It's like this whole like lifestyle streetwear kind of brand with like just cool people, content. But But I mean, in terms of esports, I feel like they've always had like their ups and downs.
Yep.
Just because, I mean, I love Nadeshot, but it's like he's not necessarily like an expert in every title either.
Hmm.
So I feel like with Jacob joining them, it almost feels natural for them to just pick up that Danish team.
Yeah. I mean, he did it when he joined Optic. If you think about it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm going to Optic. Here, give me config. Sure. He's like, wait, what? That's how it was. That's how it looked like from the outside. It's like, how did Malk do this? How did he literally steal like a top 5 player of that year? But he did. All right. Next roster move actually has something to do with your company, Complexity, right?
Yep.
So basically, here's the timeline as far as I know it. Stanislaw is like, oh, I'm benching myself, or whatever. You guys get Obo, and then Stanislaw joins NRG. So, which part of the deal do you want to talk about first?
We could probably talk about the Obo pod first. The fact that he joined. I think it's. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of teams had him on their radar, just because he's like a talent. He's like a popular guy. He's a streamer.
Mm-hmm.
So similar to Som, he was sort of like always designated to at some point be tried out by somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But it's honestly surprising to me that we got him necessarily, because I would have figured that somebody like Cloud9 would have been also really interested in him, right?
Cloud9 has really weird choices.
I know, and that's so weird to me, because in Dota, maybe I'm just used to it from Dota, but in Dota, like, people are more inclined to like try out new young players, whereas in CS it feels like they rather reshuffle like the old guard.
It depends on the team though. Like I think,
right?
Like I think, like here's the thing. Like if Fallen had unlimited money, and he had full power of the MIBR squad, I bet you now like at least 1 or 2 of those guys would be like young Brazilian players, probably from Furia.
From Furia, yeah. And
like,
I mean, he wanted to.
That was his literal MO until he couldn't do it anymore. So. But yeah, like I get what you mean. Like the Swedish guys have definitely done that. The French guys did it until they almost all died. Cloud9's definitely kind of gone that route. It's kind of weird though, because originally Cloud9 didn't do that. Like they had Stewie TK and Automatic and shit, but
but ever since it feels like they've sort of like been hesitant to just do that again.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like I guess our turn to like dip down, even though I think we've always been trying to like pick up incomers. I mean,
not all the time, like
not all the time, but like
in general
that we've been growing. I mean, we picked up Android and YAEP when nobody else was really taking chances on them.
Yeah, but we also picked up Shazam. But I mean, Shazam was obviously a good choice. But you know what I mean? Like, I think you just like here's the thing. Like, I think in terms of principle, yeah, I think you guys, if I look at Complexity from the outside, in principle, you guys are thinking like more towards the future in that sense. But it's not like you're going to skip out on a player who clearly would do something good for your team.
Exactly, and this is why we also picked up Shaz and Stan at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was like, even though we were like set on like going with the team, but it was like that was the most obvious upgrade in the history of upgrades.
Mm-hmm.
Now with Obo, I mean, his first LAN event was actually pretty impressive, honestly. Yeah. He was immediately one of our best players. I think he was pretty much the second best fragger after Shaz.
Mm-hmm.
Pistol aces aside and stuff, like he just had solid play. He had a couple of rounds where he disappeared for sure. Like in the mid game, especially, he would disappear.
It's also like 15.
Exactly, he's like 15. It was literally his first LAN event. Like I'm not holding anything against him. If anything, just all the praise for him to like hold his own, not be nervous, and just play almost the same as he just like likes to play, which I think is really important for him to not like suddenly become super like nervous and like clam up, tense up, or whatever, just to play. I mean, the reason why we picked him up is because he has like snappy aim. He is a little bit of a looser cannon. He can be pretty aggressive. I don't know. He's just like super good. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'm excited about it, but obviously, I think anybody at our company will tell you that like we don't have like high expectations from the get go. It's not like we demand like, oh, better place top 8 with this lineup. No, it's more of a let's just see how we can go from here.
Yeah, like basically that's always been like the Complexity situation. I think it has been for a long time, and I think that's like correct. I think that's a correct thing you have to think about. Like it's always dependent on where you are in the scene right now. So,
and it's tough because I think in an ideal situation we probably wouldn't have made any roster changes past like earlier, like New Year when we announced like Ricky and nothing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we had been able to like play with that roster for like ever or for like this entire season, we probably would have, just because it's more convenient to play with the same people over and over and just improve from there. But
Mm-hmm.
like all these roster changes, all these visa issues made it almost impossible to play together. And I think this also contributed to Stan then not wanting to stay here anymore, because to him it was just too much at that point. And I guess this
Mm-hmm.
is my segue into then now NRG. Um, I mean, I think he found a good home in NRG. I mean, the team,
I think he repeated history at NRG. That's what I think.
yeah. I mean, I messaged you, right? Like, isn't this like the EE Gunner situation
Yeah, but
with
like it's also like it's exactly like the Optic Stanislaus situation, the
well,
Tarek
yeah.
Stanislaus situation, Tarek Optic situation, isn't it? But yeah, like, all right. So I guess before we talk about the energy move, we have to talk about the Daps kicked, right? So here's the thing I think about Daps. I think he's straight up like a top 2 leader in NA, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean kicking him was wrong. But it does mean, it does mean you have to like think about it. And when I think I wrote like a reaction piece or something, but basically what I said was NRG, like the inherent problem I had with this change was the reason NRG was losing wasn't because of tactics, and it wasn't because of setups, and it wasn't because of calling, and it wasn't basically the reason I'd say they were losing is because they were fucking up on team play aspects and communication aspects.
Right.
And sometimes their firepower just didn't match up. And the way the team was set up, it was specifically so guys like Breezy, Ethan, and Cirque can like dominate, right? And so like I don't know how Stanislaw changes that equation. That's just why I didn't know if it was a good idea or not.
And I mean, this is why I think like these roster changes mid-season are like always so iffy, because you don't have a lot of time to like address these things either.
Mm-hmm.
The major's like, oh well, I guess you have like a month, but isn't there the player break in between too?
Oh yeah, there's a player break in between. Like
Yeah.
if I had to guess, like because they're a new roster, I'll probably just play through the player break. Like
Maybe, but at the same time, who are you even gonna like effectively really practice against, right?
Furia will do it. Furia did it last time. That's why they're good.
I guess.
But
No, I mean, yeah, I feel like if they really wanted to attack at this major, they probably should do that, because
mm-hmm.
this is just really difficult to like turn things around that quickly. I won't say it's impossible. I mean, you could tell with. I mean, I think our team at the London major is a perfect example of how much you can accomplish within like even just a 2-week
time
weekend.
span. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I mean, it was Stanislaw at the helm of it, so he's like a very capable leader. I wouldn't put it past him, but at the same time,
like here's the thing about Stanislaw is like, what's the word I want to use here? He isn't nearly as hyped as he once was. I guess that's how I'll put it. Like
he isn't.
Like when he first joined Liquid, like here's what we all thought, or we all thought he was going to be the chosen one. We thought he was going to be the next great NA leader, and he had almost every piece to accomplish that with Liquid. Nitro, Elige, JDM Pimp, I think it was, and I think later he got Twist also. And that lineup didn't really meet the expectations. And then the removal of not Stanislaw from the team, but Stanislaw into secondary caller and Nitro as leader was a kickstart of that team. Right?
Right.
So I can't really give him credit for Liquid, not really. And then you look at his time in Complexity, he's basically was in a very similar situation to Daps. But unlike Daps, he wasn't able to do what Daps did. And what I mean by that is like he wasn't able to raise a bunch of these young players to like be the next guy. And that's not necessarily his fault, unless you consider GMing as part of scouting, which Daps literally scouted all his players.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not saying, and obviously that doesn't matter for NRG, but I'm just saying, like, I don't, like, basically, in my point of view, if Stanislaw fails this NRG, he's just not as good as he was. He's just not that good of a leader. That's how I'll put it. Like, they're like, he's not gonna be like in my historically great NA leaders. Like he's not Sean Garrett, he's not Daps, he's not. I guess if you want, you can throw Nitro in there right now. Like I wrote an entire article about why it's like hard to rate Nitro, just the leader. But
Right.
I think this is like his last chance.
I agree with you, and like I was hesitant to say it during while he was with us because it's just like one of these things where you kind of want to hope that he turns things around. But ultimately, I think when people looked at the complexity and they were always, oh, Stanislav, one of the best IGLs in NA, and maybe, but at the same time, there's still so much that he still has to prove, right? For all his like, I mean, people look at his like positive track record, but what about his negative track record, right? Some of these players that he's been playing with, I mean, in complexity, for example, like why hasn't he elevated some of these guys to the next level, right? If anything, they even got worse at some point as well.
Yeah, and I will say this: like, what's weird about the complexity thing, like, not a lot of people picked up on because obviously, like, not everybody follows that team. But if you look at the way the team morphed after Stanislav joined, I think he effectively like fucked up the principle of the team. And what I mean by that is like when you guys originally had FNS and Rambo. I thought the guiding point was you're supposed to pick up a bunch of young talented guys and then try to get to the next level. Because if you basically pull off what Daps did, you all of a sudden have like a really good future to build off of.
Right.
But once Stanislav joined, you guys did that initially, but then you started replacing them with older players. And eventually you ended up with like the Rick A Nothing lineup, right? And I was like, that's kind of weird. Like, is that Cole or is that Stanislav or is that just like circumstances? I don't know, right? But it's just something to keep in mind.
And then we also dropped Rambo.
Yeah. And like Rambo directly said that was the reason they split up. Like in an interview, he's like,
yeah,
we had different philosophies about how you're supposed to build a team.
And I think, I mean, ultimately, if that's the thing, if it had worked out, everybody would continue to sing his praises. But I think right now, since it didn't work out, I think it's also only appropriate to send then now, not as to criticize him, but look at him again and be like, all right, is this really the best or one of the best leaders in NA, or maybe
or maybe we overrated him. Like we don't know. Right?
Yeah. Right.
Like I think it's a good test for him. I will say, I also think like this is a gamble from NRG's point of view, or it should be, but we don't know exactly what kind of calling Stanislav is going to do. I will say Pet did do a Counterpoints interview with Counterpoints podcast with Moses and Thorn, and he basically described. He was actually in both roster shuffles, right? With the Optic Stanislav Tarek thing and with this one. Right. So he has like a better perspective. And he basically said like Daps was really good at setting the foundation, the roles of how to get map control and all that shit. But they were really bad at coordinating the actual splits. And even though Stanislav wasn't as good as the beginning part, he was good at coordinating the splits. So if that's the case, then maybe it will work out. I will also say if I am Daps from this point forward, one of the contractual obligations I will have for my team is we will never pick up Tarek and we will never pick up Stanislav.
You have to promise me, otherwise I'm not going to join.
And I will literally start, and he should literally start a meme calling like Tarek a snake or whatever. Like, come on, man, how many times it's got to happen? Like even though I know that's connected to Stanislav, like come on, it's actually Tarek. And I like Tarek. I actually think like Tarek was like I think Tarek is just acting in his own best interest, and I think that's good for a player. But I'm like, come on, man, come on.
See, if it wasn't for us immediately picking up Obo and for Def wanting to be IGL, I feel like Devs would have been a good pickup for us, honestly. Just because I think right now, I'm not necessarily sure like firepower or like individual skill is what we need. I just feel like we just need like good foundations. I feel like in the last couple of months and weeks, we've sort of like at least we were really bad at just the fundamentals of CS. Which I think sometime down the line there must have been a break within the team where that sort of like got lost and where people were like on the on other ends of like the spectrum, whatever. But I think somebody like Dabs could have really helped at least elevate this team to like a smaller next level, and then after the major for like a proper, because ultimately I think a lot of teams will reshuffle after the major, and that's where the real talent is going to be available.
You know what's the genius thing about getting Daps though? That Def will never have, I think. What? He's really, really fucking good at finding talent.
That's true. That's
Like
true.
look at his fucking sheet. I'll give it to you. He found a Liege, Naf, Mixwell, Rush, Stanislaw. He also found Cirque, Ethan, Breezy. It's 8 people. Is it all coincidence? I don't know. But I'm just saying, like, he's literally like if I was like a small time, I won't say small time, but if I was like one of at that tier of competition, he is like one of the guys I pick because you get the bonus of not having to do the scouting.
Because he already does it for you. No,
And
I
he does
agree.
it better than you. Like I think that's something like teams have to consider if you're at that level. Is like he was really good at finding the next good player. He also found Wardell. Actually, I won't say he found Wardell, but he's like he also knew Wardell was going to be good because like when he picked up Cirque, it was either Cirque or Wardell. Like that's what he said in his interview. So like he's just really good at finding the next guy who's going to come
Right.
up. So I
Right.
think that's something you have to consider if you're like that level of teams. Like he was going to give you additional benefit of building the team to the next level. So, yeah, just my thoughts about that. Like, even though I've been, and I guess I'll finish up with this. Even though I've been negative about Stanislaw, he did fucking bring that optic roster to the level that Daps couldn't. Like, there must be something in there. And if he could do it again, then that's fucking great. But we'll have to see. Right? And, all right, we're going to move on to the tournament now. ESL Pro League Season 9 is actually happening this week. And
already started, obviously. But yeah.
Yeah, it's obviously started. And I will start with actually I don't know if you want to call it the biggest story, because technically Furia killing Astralis kind of killed that story, but Astralis are in rehab is how I'd like to call it.
They are, aren't they?
Yeah, like basically they after they won that major, like we fucking did it, we won an era, and then they spent the next 3 months, and we shattered all the records and shit. Then they spent the next 3 months dining on that Blast fast food tournament, and now they're out of shape, and now the Wolves are coming, or I guess in Furious case the Panther is coming, right? So what do you think about Astralis?
So I think Astralis, it's sort of something that we all kind of saw coming. Didn't necessarily want to happen because it would have also not. Actually, I kind of wanted it to happen just to punish the whole like
Blasting.
Yeah. And plus also I think, if they're already not attending these events, like at least I want to have some sort of something out of it. So seeing Team Liquid now at the top is kind of cool. Although it's just HLTV rating for now. I say just, but obviously
I think Liquid is at least the interim champion.
I agree. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm also just happy with how like Furia has sort of like been shaping up and almost become like the best Brazilian team. No,
I think
almost.
they
I think they are.
Just in terms of, you can only go off of raw results. Furia has actually played tournaments. MIBR has lost at Blast and shit.
And, like to me, there's like so many upsides to this also, because now we're talking about potentially like ENCE also poking into that top tier.
I think like best team in the world. Yeah.
Just in general, we've seen so many like stories develop as Astralis was sort of like AFK effectively, that I think Astralis being like now sort of like overturned, it makes for a good story, because now we're looking for the teams that are currently.
It's just such a lame way to go, isn't it? Though
it really is. It just really is. It sucks, and like I wish Astralis wouldn't have gone down this way, but I mean, if they're already going down, I kind of also want to go see them go down even further. Like I honestly just want to see them, like have to climb their way back up again.
Yeah, like basically they're like Batman, gotta climb out of that pit.
Yeah.
Right. Except unlike Batman, they threw themselves in there. So that's a bit of a difference.
And except the prisoners down there, they're just like a bunch of blast events.
Yeah, man. And they're feasting on like kings down there or some shit.
Occasionally, MIBR also climbs down and be like, "Yo, what's up, guys?"
Oh shit. Here's the thing. Like I think some people are picking up on. And it occurred to me, like when I was thinking about Coldzera's career, basically, like if you think about the best teams of all time, right? It doesn't really matter what game you're talking about, but there's an aura of invincibility around them, an aura of fear around them, right? Astralis basically just destroyed their own aura, and the reason this is a problem is because it gives you like a really good edge against the rest of the competition, and if you lose that edge, you're kind of fucked. And what I mean by that is like everybody thinks you're like nobody's gonna second guess their own decisions when they're playing against you, and that's something that's only afforded to either the best player or the best team.
Yeah.
So like the reason if you think about like all the bets like Fnatic versus Titan like back in 2014, the only reason Titan could I won't say the only reason like one of the reasons Titan could like upset that team is because they were all fucking afraid of Kenny S. Right, and like I guess if you want to go back further, I guess it's not a great example. Another better example is like Titan Very Games beat NIP in an online game, but even though it was just an online game, it was the first game they ever beat NIP in. Next time they met in a tournament, they finally broke the record of losing, and that's just basically what's happening to going to happen to Astralis, I think.
No, I agree, and like you said, it's sort of like this aura that they build up themselves. They're also now tearing it down themselves, and it's you see it in traditional sports too, when there's like like the underdog facing like the big team. Oftentimes, they just beat themselves because they get into their own head. They get too scared. They overthink just the basics, even because of like, oh, what about this? What if we did this, that? And they definitely think that people just didn't have a lot of respect for Astralis anymore, because I mean, why would you?
Yeah, they basically
haven't really
gave
seen
it
them
up.
play, and then when you did see them play, they were like, whatever. And then I think that one
then Furia basically shattered them. And you're like, well, Furia can do it. Like those fucking guys can do it. I can fucking do it.
Exactly.
Right. So yeah, like I just think, like, even though Astralis are at this tournament, they're not the favorite, in my opinion. Which was impossible to say like 3 months ago.
I wouldn't consider them favorites either.
Yeah. But yeah, I will say their Vertigo looks decent, but they've only played Heroic and Cloud9, and Cloud9, as we all know, is trash.
Yeah.
Even they fucking know it's trash.
Cloud9, I don't know about Cloud9, man. This lineup they're in the minor, right?
They already eliminated from the minor.
Oh no, they were eliminated from the minor.
They were eliminated from the online part of the
Well, I don't know what to say about this team anymore.
Literally, they had to kick everybody out except Automatic and Cajun. And the only reason you keep Cajun is because obviously he was actually good for most of this lineup. So it's like, it's fucked up to kick a guy who's actually doing his job. Right? And Automatic obviously is the best player, but like the rest of them have to go, I think.
The shuffle season will be super, super interesting.
Like even though you guys don't want Daps, I think Cloud9 should get Daps.
I think they should. Yeah. I mean, look, it's super difficult to say like who should go where right now, because again, after this major, there's going to be a major shuffle in like every region. I think like NA for sure is going to see a major shuffle. Outside of Team Liquid, everybody's going to switch.
I will say this, like I didn't publish it yet. I don't know when I'm going to, but basically I think, you know how I said like TSM should buy the Optic lineup? They actually have a secondary option that's actually really good. You get Daps, Wardell, Kusta at +2.
Ooh, steal the Ghost Remnants.
Yeah, steal. Yeah, actually, here's how I do it: Daps, Kusta, Wardell, 10s, and then +1. Right.
You know what? I like that a lot. And
like, if they want to stick to the NA, I think that's the best option.
I agree. And I didn't even consider ghost people or ghost players when I was mentioning like the big shuffle in NA, right? Like there's going to be a lot of players, and I'm pretty sure Envy is also going to be part of that shuffle, because I mean, yeah, they just made a change. They just
I feel like Envy should just give up trying to be a good team and get steal. That's how I feel at this moment. Maybe. God, it's so depressing.
But yeah, no, I think there's going to be lots of changes. So yeah, I think right now you could argue Daps should probably rebuild Cloud9, but who knows? Maybe when and there's also actually a couple like FPL stars like 10s.
Yeah.
It's somebody that I think should be picked up after the major too. So,
but here's the thing about 10s. The only reason I believe in him is because FNS said he's good, and I don't know if FNS is just playing all of us again. You can never know with that guy.
He's playing us, dude. He's playing us. He might not be lying, but he's still playing us. He has an agenda. He has an agenda.
I don't know if you saw this tweet, but basically like when MIBR was fucking destroying everybody, Thorn basically said, yeah, I had a conversation with Stewie 2K and FNS about how you're supposed to beat this MIBR lineup. Now look, here we are, like 2 years later, MIBR is fucking dead, and FNS is the cause of it. right?
FN fucking S.
Uh, the true god of
I mean,
Counter Strike.
he's also still technically up for grabs, So
No, the problem with FNS is like he hasn't done anything to make people believe in him beyond the memes.
he really hasn't. And I mean, when we picked him up,
Like I think here's, even though he made the right decision for his own career with Cloud9, he shouldn't have trusted Tarek. That's all I'm saying. Like
calling Tarek a snake.
no, I like Tarek is not. All right, here's the thing. Here's how I think Tarek has evolved. Remember that time when he was on CLG, and basically he tried to play the good soldier, and then all the other CLG players like left, like some of the better CLG players left him, and he was stuck in that fucking contract.
Right.
And then finally somebody bought him out, and at that moment he literally thought in his mind, "I will never let this happen to me again." And that's basically been the rest of his career, right? And basically, like, even though I don't like necessarily agree with all the decisions he's made, he does have the quality of him is that he will make the decisions that will affect his own career, whether it's good or bad or not. Like, because at least he'll go down knowing, like, at least I made a choice, right?
Right.
And so this isn't a guy who's going to follow an in-game leader that doesn't follow the same philosophies as he does. And basically, that's what we've seen. He kicked out FNS. He's kicked out Daps twice. Like, it's just who he is as a player. And so if you have to like, it's not enough just like join a team that's good on paper. You have to like figure out if you have the same philosophies or not. And I think that's where FNS failed. Is FNS, as far as I know, he's like super structured, and Tarek is not. Like, it was never going to work. I guess that's how I. But obviously, this is all retrospect, right? So I think in retrospect, I think FNS probably should have stuck with Cole just because that Cloud9 lineup, unless they literally won, was not going to survive.
Well, I figured the same at that point, but he wanted to leave, and well, I guess it kind of worked out for his master plan. But
he did destroy Brazil, so I mean,
he did destroy Brazil, but he at the same time also destroyed his own career, sort of.
Hey, we will see. You can never count that guy out. never count him out.
The master of 40 chess.
Yeah. Truly the greatest meme Counter Strike will ever produce, I think. All right, so let's go to talk about the other teams because I think we sidetracked a bit. All right, EPL. So, Liquid is your favorite. They're my favorite.
100% favorite. I don't see any other team currently, especially since ENCE is not here. I don't
like. I think ENCE could give them a run for the money, obviously, but like ENCE isn't here, so.
Vitality isn't here either. So
yeah, like number 2 and number 3 team aren't here. Like that's fucking wild. Vitality's number 3 team. Oh, I wanted to say this. Like when I talked about them earlier, the fucking we all wrote off the young French players, but fucking Alex was the savior. He's fucking UK. The savior of France is from UK. Oh, actually, technically, Zaiwu was the savior of France. And this guy's the leader they always needed. But like the saviors of France were those two. Who the fuck knew that?
Who would have guessed?
No, nobody could have guessed Alex, but everybody guessed Zaiwu. So
it's funny because I think we talked about Vitality like a couple months ago, and they were sort of on the up and up then, but it was still sort of like
pretty bad. Yeah,
pretty bad, and it's just classic.
It's night and day.
Team.
It's night and day now.
It's absolutely night and day. They're really, really strong. Zaiwu, I think. And I mean, a lot of people heading into ESL and Cologne are like, "Oh, is he gonna be like the next?"
No, it's obviously simple. Get the fuck out of here. But you're pretty good. You the reason you're like, well, it's because you forgot fucking Simple is a god. It's like it's hard to remember. It's hard to remember the fact that like that Simple carried Zeus and Edward on his back for an year and a half to titles, fucking
That's
titles.
True. I love Simple, but it is like you said, it is easy to forget that considering his
and Simple never stops. Like
his team is basically invisible.
Like he basically did the Navi basically did the Charlotte route basically, but man. So I think Simple
without being good, by the way.
Yeah, Simple is the actual one. So we'll see. Like again, we got sidetracked, but basically I think Liquid are number 1 here. All right, so let's just take a look at the groups and pick out who we think are getting out because I think most of them have been played out right now. So basically, Group A, only 4 teams have survived. NRG, Astralis, both of them are going to go to the playoffs, I think, and then Heroic and G2. So The thing about NRG is I think Daps is playing with them, so they're basically a dead lineup. So I think we both think Astrala should win this, right?
Charlotte should 100% win this. I mean, even if they had what's his face Stan
Stanislav,
with them,
still too
I
early.
still, I still think this is something that this would be too early. Like Charlotte should not lose against that.
Yeah.
What else? Yeah, no, I think that's very easy. And then Heroic G2, I suppose.
Heroic did take out Fnatic. Those young dames.
I don't know. This is like two teams that I don't want to bet on, because on any given day they beat themselves, both teams.
Yeah, like here's like G2 is
I kind of want to go with G2, but
no. Let me check the map. Let me check this map veto real quick, because I think G2 is really obvious in their map veto. Because they're I don't know if you watch them, but basically they just run like a 2 king style, where like they're basically like their entire all their tactics and play book is based around 2 individuals going off depending on the map. Usually Shox and Kenny S, but if it's like on train, it's like Jax and Kenny S. If it's on like overpass, it's like Almanac and Kenny S.
Almanac, yeah.
Yeah, so like it's really obvious how they're going to play it out. So it really depends on what Heroic is going to do to try to fuck them up, map wise at least. So yeah, they're going to. Yeah, I think basically I guess it depends on how Heroic think of themselves as a team. If they really think they're like an underdog, they'll go Vertigo and try to like gimmick their way through, I guess, is one way to put it. If not, then they'll probably just do what they did against Fnatic. So, yeah, it's really like it's really up in the air just because I think like Heroic have just a bunch of young Danish stars that maybe they'll just show up and you're kind of fucked.
But I want to stress this is close because they're both equally bad.
Yeah, like I think G2 is better than they were, but like, like basically the problem with G2 is they didn't pick up Alex. And I guess they didn't pick up Zywu. Like, I think that's the problem.
I mean, you know, maybe just adding a Brit is the solution. Smoothie is still available.
I'm pretty sure like they're the opposite polar ends of what a Brit can be, though. Listen, man. Alex saved Vitality. Smoothie actually destroyed Big. Like he literally destroyed Big.
Yeah.
So like opposite ends of that spectrum. Ooh. All right.
Moving on, Group B, I suppose. FaZe versus Mouse.
Yeah, Kerrigan's Revenge Arc 2.0. Right.
I am betting on Mouse. They're the better team. So
like they're the better team, but FaZe have the better players.
Yeah.
Like, listen, I know Robs is like fucking things up right now because he's finally playing under Kerrigan, and Kerrigan's like, this is who you actually are. Oh my god, I'm a superstar. Yes, you always were, but you needed me to tell you. Like, I don't know why Kerrigan does it, but he always does it, right? Like he always gets these players to like be greater than they were before him.
Well, that's the mark of a true leader. Yeah. You know, being able to elevate everybody else around them.
Yeah, and then the thing with FaZe is like, fuck, nobody says it, but like Nico's basically like, just the fact that technically Simple doesn't plug and play anymore. Nico's technically the #1 player. He's technically the #1 player, right? Just because we want to say Simple is, but like he has to at least go play some lands. Like, please. But if it's not Simple, then it's Nico, and Nico's fucking amazing right now.
I still want to go with Mouse though. I'm pretty sure I'm still gonna go with Mouse. Yeah.
Yeah, like here's the problem with FaZe is I think one of the better maps is like Dust 2, and they nearly died to North on Dust 2. And then like if they go to Mirage, I think Miles will take them out on Mirage. And the other thing is like I think Miles just have the informational advantage here. And what I mean by that is like the first time Miles went out, they basically went pretty good on like 3 to 4 maps. They were good on, I think it was Train, Mirage, and one more. There was like another one. I think it might have been Inferno. And then outside of that, they were like all right on. But now that they've had more time to train, they're better on more maps. But we just don't know which ones they are. And
which ones yet? Yeah.
FaZe shouldn't know either because Miles played MIBR, who are on Inferno. Like that's not going to give you information. And MIBR is pretty bad right now. And then Hellraiser was just really fucking bad. Like they basically lost every fucking duel in that series. So it didn't really matter what they were doing tactically. So I just think information-wise, it's all like headed towards Kerrigan's way. I think Kerrigan is going to do what he did at IEM Sydney. Yeah, do you remember that one? Right after basically Astralis kicked Kerrigan, and then Astralis were on the verge, like on the literal verge of making another era without Caribou lineup.
And then Kerrigan just.
I think Kerrigan came in with FaZe as like fuck everything.
Yeah.
Fuck everything. I'm stopping you
Not
guys.
on my watch.
Yeah, and then he won Veto Chicken with Cobblestone.
The misery of CS fueled by revenge.
Yeah, man, the Count of Monte Cristo. Almost.
And this is why I'm hedging my bets on Mouse.
Yeah. The anime is just too good to bet against, as Eternal Envy might say. All right, and I think we both are. I think like it doesn't necessarily matter about the matchups. I think we're both gonna say Liquid got out of the losers bracket, right? Lower bracket.
Like it doesn't matter if it's North or MIBR. Although I have the suspicion that it might be North.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say it's North. Like I think
MIBR is so bad lately.
MIBR are so bad, and North are actually surprisingly solid. Like to the point where I literally, in my mind, I'm thinking in my brain, like, why wasn't Valde the leader the entire time? Outside of MSL, I think MSL is still a better leader than him. I think there's like clear like tactical deficiencies in Valde still, but like, he's actually way better than Cadian was. Like it's weird. It's really wild. But of course, it's only been like a few events. But like still, like here's the thing. Like the reason I'm giving Valde more credit is because he somehow resurrected Yugi, who I completely wrote off. So yeah. All right. So last thing is, who do you think? We both have Liquid number 1, right? Who do you think are the top 4 then?
Top 4 probably Mouse, FaZe, Astralis.
Yeah, I think that's
I feel like the rest is just really bad.
Yeah.
There's this odd chance that not even odd chance. Never mind. I was about to say that maybe MIBR, but MIBR can't make the playoffs if Liquid make it. So
yeah,
and
literally
can't. They're likely gonna.
Yeah, all right. I think that about covers it.
The top 4 is pretty much just
Yeah, I think about covers it for ESL Pro League. I will say this as a final note. Basically, Blast has fucked over the CS:GO tournament circuit.
For now, anyway.
Yeah, no, I think it's like for the rest of the year, to the point where ESL Cologne is literally going to be the best tournament of this year. I'm calling it now, because they will have all the best teams, and this will be the only tournament this year that has all the best teams outside of the majors,
and have a format that's better than the majors.
And has a format better than the majors, and here's the thing: the majors have the prestige. I'll give them the nod on that, and I think in general they're really fucking good. But I think even though Katowice is historically a great venue, a great tournament for Counter-Strike, its history and legacy doesn't match Cologne.
Cologne's, no, I agree, and this is going to be the 5th Cologne in the Lanxess Arena too.
Yeah,
like I wouldn't be surprised if ESL has some sick shit lined up for like just the production and like the stage experience too.
I wouldn't be surprised if they get right into the Hall of Fame.
I was about to say there's like so many things that they can do, and I think ESL in general has actually been upping their production over the last couple of years now, and even like their player treatment and all these like little things that ESL has been improving a lot on, mostly because they get a lot of experience from Dota, right?
Yeah.
Where in Dota it's like very easy to like Dota has like super high standards, so if you just trickle down small things from Dota to CS is suddenly like, oh wow, what is this like top tier event happening in front of my like at home?
Yeah. All right, I think about covers it. Got any final comments? Any final?
No, that's pretty much it.
All right, sounds good. See you guys later.